This episode is brought to you by Prime. What if you had one more chance with the one that got away?
Sam.
You came home.
Based on the best-selling novel from Carly Fortune. Every Year After follows childhood friends Sam and Percy as they reunite in the dreamy, nostalgic lakeside town of Barry's Bay.
Love can be hard to find. So if you're lucky enough to find that person, never let go.
A second chance at first love. Every Year After. Streaming June 10th, only on Prime.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest today is the woman who put Cleanse and Polish cleanser and muslin cloths in bathroom cabinets all over the country. In fact, scrap that, all over the world, Liz Earle. Back in the 1980s, Liz started her career as a beauty editor before going on to found a skincare empire that started with the aforementioned Cleanse and Polish and grew beyond her wildest expectations. In her own words, she then spent 15 years travelling the world selling face cream. Then, a period of intense personal upheaval in her 40s led to a total life rethink. She was one of the first women in the public eye to challenge the narrative on menopause, or in fact talk about it at all, and is now a trusted authority on wellbeing. Her last book, A Better Second Half, topped the Sunday Times bestseller list, as did the new one, How to Age, an authoritative look at the science of aging and how to do it better. And let's face it, there is no better advert for the art of aging well than Liz herself, who is now 63 but has a biological age of, drumroll, 39. I know.
When I was in my 20s, I was writing about fats and oils in the diet because I had very bad skin, trouble with eczema, and I was wanting to fix it. So that's what I wrote about. And then when I was having my children, I wrote about pregnancy and baby and toddler foods. And, you know, those were my early books. And then I wrote about gut health because that was really front of mind with everything. And then menopause. And then kind of the last taboo has been aging.
Liz joined me to discuss surviving her 40s shit show and how learning about mitochondria changed her approach to health, why sunlight gets a bad rap, and how biohacking is not just for the tech bros. We also discussed HRT, the supplements you really do need to take, and hello research community, women are not just small men. I mean, you were one of the first.
Yeah, my Good
about
Menopause Guide was pretty much the first
What year
kind
was
of
that?
consumer book. It's heading for 10 years.
Yeah, it must be, because I say when I wrote The Shift, we were selling it in 2019, and yours was up, but there were very few.
Very few.
And it's interesting, isn't it, how much it's changed.
And I remember, you know, back then it just being, you know, something that was quite hush-hush, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even really want to go loud with it, you know.
No, totally. Say I was 46, and certainly everybody I asked, everybody I spoke to, they were like, oh, no, it was a bit like, oh, the Antichrist. And, it's like, oh, is it catching? Don't talk about it. And that would have been, oh, God, hang on, 46. I can't even do the maths. But that would, it might have been a similar sort of time. It was, and there was nothing.
No, I remember feeling really embarrassed because as a health writer, you know, writing about health for nearly 40 years. Don't know. And I'd never heard the term perimenopause. No. Isn't that crazy? And I don't even think my doctor had, which is even worse.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? So, I mean, you've gone from, in your 40s, like a bit of a shit show.
Yeah, it was not great, my 40s, for lots of reasons. But I think for a lot of midlife women, that's the case, isn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely the case for me.
Yeah, a lot goes wrong. A lot can and does go wrong. And for me, it was, I mean, not just kind of my marriage breaking down and selling my beauty company and just being, stressed generally. But then you get declining hormones, and then you have the pressures of this kind of typical sandwich generation. Kids, my older kids were empty nesting, my younger ones were teenagers, and trying to manage all of that, and then elderly parents. And I mean, I completely lost myself, to be honest. And I was like nowhere on my priority list did I appear.
Yeah. Do you know what, of all of those things, can you now, with the benefit of hindsight, pinpoint what was the thing that tipped you right over the edge?
I think it was just literally the bucket being full, isn't it? It's overwhelm. And it's like when your immune system just rebels and it triggers into, in some cases, things like migraine or autoimmune issues. And they describe it as having a symptom-filling bucket, and you can cope with a lot. And then just that one little thing goes in and just everything, it just cascades out. So I don't think it was necessarily one particular thing. I think my hormones really didn't help. Not understanding that my tiredness and lack of sleep wasn't just due to spikes in cortisol, but it was due to declining estrogen. And that really spurred me to write the Good Menopause Guide and to campaign for it, even though I felt very hesitant at the time, because I didn't want to be associated with that word, that word back then. Now we've normalised. Isn't it amazing how quickly it's become normal speech just to say menopause, like you would say periods or pregnancy, or some of those words that in the past, and certainly in bygone times, you'd never have uttered. It was just the change.
Oh my God,
whispered voices. Yeah. And we never talked about it. We didn't ever learn about it in school. I've had 5 children. At no point did any midwife, doctor, gynecologist, specialist, health visitor, nobody say, oh, by the way, by the time you hit your mid to late 40s, you're going to start feeling a bit different and it's hormonal change. Don't worry about it. Come talk to us. There's lots we can do. Nobody said that.
No, I mean, all you know is the kind of caricature of the menopausal woman, isn't it?
Hot, sweaty,
and finished.
Unreliable, finished, invisible, incontinent, decrepit. And I think, I was reluctant to kind of identify with that myself because I didn't feel it really related to me. And actually my work all the way through my writing, I remember years ago I was writing, when I was in my 20s, I was writing about fats and oils in the diet because I had very bad skin, trouble with eczema, and I was wanting to fix it. So that's what I wrote about. And then when I was having my children, I wrote about pregnancy and baby and toddler foods. And, those were my early books. And then it kind of went on. Then I wrote about gut health because that was really front of mind with everything. And then menopause. And then kind of the last taboo has been aging, which again, I've thought at the time when I turned 60 a few years ago, I was reluctant to acknowledge that because I didn't feel old. And yet, I do have my senior's bus pass.
Do you know what? I am 60 in July and I'm very excited about getting my senior bus pass because I spend quite a lot of money on trams and buses. I'm like, yes.
Bring it
Discount on the trains in London.
Yes, I really, and I really hoped actually every time I show it on the train, I'm just waiting for the time that the conductor says, no, love, show me yours because this is obviously your mum's. It's never happened, actually. No. I've never been challenged, which is really disappointing.
It's like when you're buying booze in the supermarket, isn't it? And they have to say that you're overage and they press the visibly over 25 button. It would be really good if they had to, they wanted you to prove.
Yes,
that
could you just prove that? I know, no, I've never been challenged, which is a disappointment.
It's like, though, it's that narrative, isn't it? And I think it's whenever someone says to me, can you just talk a bit less about menopause because it's making me scared? It's always very much younger women as well, because, once you get into your 50s, you're not scared of aging, obviously, because you are aging. Because the narrative is so negative.
Yeah, it's true.
And that narrative about aging, I mean, I remember the first time I realised that the emoji for older woman was literally a little granny. You've seen that? She's like got a little grey bun.
Grey bun and glasses. That's like terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, and now I watch people on social media discovering it And as they come up to like,
yes.
I'm over 40 and suddenly I'm like a granny emoji.
Yeah. I think we are rewriting it, aren't we? We've got some amazing trailblazers. And I think up until relatively recently, even if you sort of look up online, you tap in images of old ladies, you do get the frail, doddery older woman with the Zimmer frame. And one of my favourite accounts actually on Instagram is Old Lady Gains. And you've got these women in their 80s and 90s lifting weights with all the gym bros in the gyms. And it's phenomenal to see their strength.
How did you get yourself from there
to
here? Because, here you are. I mean, how to age, I was just like scribbling through it, going, all these things that made me want to try. But and I know this is such a weird backhanded compliment, isn't it? Because the idea that you don't look 60, you're 63.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I don't think bus conductors think you're 63.
Well, they obviously haven't got their glasses on, have they? Clearly they're not looking at me properly.
But it's so weird that the compliment has to be that you look younger.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that probably will change because it's basically kind of biology. And I think this is the really empowering thing for women. It's not about massively expensive gizmos and gadgets and endless supplements and complicated routines. Of course, you can dig into that if you want to. So my last book was called A Better Second Half. And that was really literally because I was coming up to 60. And I felt that with a bit of luck and good genes and a prevailing wind, I was halfway through. And there was absolutely no reason why we can't hit 120 should we want to. But of course, you want to do that in good health. It's not about just having long life. It's about having long health. So that's the goal. So having had a relatively chaotic and tricky in some places first half of life, and I get so many DMs from women on my Insta and whatever, women who are in crisis and who really feel that they've lost their way in society, their relationships might have broken down, they might have been made redundant, they might have had, massive life changes, and kind of where do they fit in all of this? Having spent so long being the caregivers and the providers and the workers in their community, and they're just kind of lost. So that book was really a sort of a manifesto for midlife to say, it's not all downhill. You sort out these pillars. So the basic pillars are all the same that you see on any social media. It's lift some weights, eat more protein, prioritize your sleep, have a sense of purpose, sort out your mental health. Those are important. You can't ignore those, but those are the fundamentals. But after that book, and after it did well, I thought, well, there is more here. There's a lot more. And there's a lot more that isn't being spoken about. And I think because I work in the world of longevity and I talk to a lot of gerontologists and academics and researchers, I kept hearing this word mitochondria everywhere and everything coming back to mitochondria. And I'm not a scientist, I'm not an academic, so I really need these experts to explain it to me really clearly so I can then translate it and hopefully bring it to a wider, more mainstream audience. And basically, mitochondria are the drivers of all our cellular functions. And if we get them right and look after them, then our bodies will age so much better. So mitochondria, bottom line, they are like little batteries in our cells. They're little tiny organelles in virtually every cell of the body. So you've got them in brain cells and bladder cells and bones and, you name it, skin cells, for example. And they have these mitochondria make energy. So any nutritionist listening will know about ATP, which is the source of energy. And just like batteries, as they age, they go flat. They run out and you have to recharge them or replace them. That is what's happening inside our cells. And it's a very, very simple analogy because if we can fix our mitochondria, either recharge them or get them to repair and replace, we are like beings with new batteries. We are literally like people who've had new batteries put in us. We have more energy. We have more joie de vivre, we're more capable, our mental health has improved, our immune system has improved, our skin looks better because our skin cells are behaving in a more youthful way. And it is really the key is how do we get our mitochondria on side and look after them so they can look after us. And the great thing about this, once you understand your biology of mitochondria, is they love stuff that's really simple and free, like daylight.
So how did you get your mitochondria on site?
Well, I was following a researcher in America called Professor Martin Picard, and he's kind of one of the global experts. And he's on record as saying that mitochondria are essentially the root of pretty much every form of cellular dysfunction and degenerative disease, which is a pretty bold statement. Can you imagine everything in healthcare? Every single thing. You're talking about cancer, cardiovascular disease, arthritis, autoimmune, you name it, all coming back to mitochondria. So I was following his research, and then I was also aware of this growing movement within the kind of biohacking community, which I tap into every now and then.
Biohacking has got such, and longevity, they have got such a tech bro connotation, haven't they? And so ultimately quite a negative connotation from a lot of
you've got the father of biohacking, Dave Asprey, who's this, extraordinary American guy who says that he's going to live to his 180 plus and is quite extreme. A lot of what he says actually is very scientifically sound, though. It's really interesting. You need people like him, mavericks, that push the boundaries. And I think we have to remember that everything sounds extreme and extraordinary until it becomes mainstream. We used to think that gut health and gut microbes were a bit weird. And now you walk into any supermarket and it's just full of, this will sort your gut health out, and we kind of accept it as a given. So, we need people like this who push the frontiers. But I think you're right. There is a big male gym, testosterone-driven community. You've got a lot of the big YouTubers, you've got Joe Rogan, you've got Huberman, you've got, all these people who are kind of talking about peptides and stem cells and all of that. But I think if you dial it back from there, there's an undercurrent of hacking into your biology, which is what basically biohacking is. When you just break it down, what does it mean? It means understanding how our cells are working on a biological level. And I started to follow the work of people like Dr. Jack Kruse, who's a neurosurgeon, who is basically talking about light and water and magnetism, which all sounds a bit woo. And then you go into the science with him and you realize that everything to do with light, water and energy, or magnetism, call it what you like, affects our mitochondria and supports them. And then I thought, well, okay, how is this? How can this be? And I started looking at the anthropology of it and going back in time, literally to the dawn of mankind, when we were just coming out of cells, basically. And the first cells that gave us life were mitochondria. That is how we all started. And it was the mitochondria that gave cells the ability to thrive and recreate and to survive, basically. And they were doing it they didn't have cryo chambers and, coenzyme Q10 supplements, and they weren't intermittent fasting. All they had around them was sunlight, daylight, and water. It didn't come out of a tap. It was what they call living water. It was just bubbling up from streams. And the Earth's natural energy, because the Earth gives off an energetic current. And those were the things that were enabling mitochondria to thrive. And guess what? They are still the things that our mitochondria need to thrive. But we've just become disconnected from them. And we can talk about all the things that have separated us. We're sitting here indoors looking outside at daylight, but actually our mitochondria want us to be out there actually getting the daylight and absorbing that instead of artificial light.
There's so much conflict in the messaging that we get, isn't there? So, daylight being the obvious one.
Well, sunlight in particular.
Sunlight.
Yeah. Sunlight's had a bad rap, for sure.
Everything that we're told is about keep away from it. Cover yourself
Stay out of the sun.
Especially if you're a kid of our sort of age. I certainly knew loads of older people who spent much too much time in the sun and looked like handbags by the time they were like 40.
They're dysregulated and they have not had the right relationship with the sun. So you've got to get your relationship right with the sun. So, the sun is a powerful force. It's neither friend nor foe. It's something to be respected. But it is the origin of life. It's what gives everything on this planet life in one way or another. And what we do is we stay indoors in the morning and then we wait until it's really nice and hot and blaring sunshine right 11, 12 o'clock. And then we go outside and we blast ourselves. And our skin is not adapted. It's not prepared for that. And we don't treat it in the right way. So just as a really simple example, and this is why actually it's about light more than sun. So before the sun comes up, actually, before you can see it over the horizon and the light begins to dawn, those first sort of hour and a half, the light is full of broad spectrum red and near infrared wavelengths. And we don't realize they're there. We can't see them. But our mitochondria in our eyes, and interesting, our retina actually has some of the richest concentration of mitochondria of the whole body. And they're there for a reason. They're there because they're signaling to our brain to set up our circadian rhythm, which is this 24-hour cycle of monitoring and regulating hormones and immune signals and all the things that keep us well for the day. So that early morning light, those signals are crucial. And I'm not an early bird. I don't know about you,
no,
Sam. I really struggle with this. And when I was writing it, it was like, oh, drat, really? And it is really true, I'm afraid. You do need to see daylight within the first kind of 60 minutes or so of waking up, assuming you're waking up at a reasonable time, ideally within the first 60 to 90 minutes of sunrise. Not so easy in the summer, much easier in the winter. But it is crucial because it does set you up for the whole day. It gives you that little cortisol spike, first thing, which is a good thing because it's what gives us a bit of energy. Too much cortisol overloads your stress responses, but a little bit is what we need. Helps set up dopamine for later in the day, sets up immune signals, is sorting out, regulating our hormone cascade. So, for women, that's really important. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of that. And then it sets a time clock to make us release melatonin at night so we sleep better. So 5 to 10 minutes of daylight. If you can't go outside, just open a window. Doesn't have to be that hard. I literally stand in front of my bathroom window 365 days a year. That window gets opened first thing and I brush my teeth in front of it. And I know that in just that simple act, I am strengthening my mitochondria to make them behave better for the whole day. Not only in terms of producing energy, but let's not forget that mitochondria also repair DNA. So they're actually repairing cellular damage, which is why they're so important for aging.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. When I think back to starting The Shift, I can hardly believe I did it. I knew nothing. What was I thinking? Was anyone going to listen? Not to mention the fact that I had to figure it all out on my own. For a moment there, it was almost too overwhelming. But despite the 3 a.m. terrors, making the decision to go for it was one of the best things I ever did. And it really helps to have a partner like Shopify on side. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, from big names like Skims to startups like Upcircle, one of my favorite skincare brands. Its design studio has hundreds of ready-to-use templates to help you build a beautiful online store. And setup is super fast with their built-in tools that help edit product photos and captions. Plus, it's all in one place. Inventory, payments, analytics, campaigns. The whole thing just makes your life a lot easier. And if, like me, it's just you, Shopify will help you easily create email and social media campaigns to get the word out. And if you get stuck, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 customer support team are there to help you. It's time to turn those what-ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your £1 a month trial and start selling today at shopify.co.uk. Go to shopify.co.uk. That's shopify.co.uk. To quote one of the experts who quoted for your book, why are we not told any of this? Why are doctors not told any of this?
Well, it's relatively new science, so they will be told.
But
absolutely.
It's the oldest thing.
Of course it is. It's the oldest.
It's new science.
I think the cynic in me, particularly, I don't see much of this yet on social media with a lot of the biohackers and the sort of so-called wellness influencers, maybe because there's nothing to sell. What I'm talking about here is free.
Yeah,
I'm going to get you to change 1 or 2 light bulbs, but that's probably about the only thing that you need to buy, really. We can talk about light bulbs. But yes, getting daylight is free, staying hydrated, slipping your shoes and socks off, connecting with the Earth's actual resonance energy is also free. So it's a tough sell, isn't it? Because there isn't anything to sell. So I think maybe, pharmaceutical companies, are they going to do a randomized controlled trial showing that standing barefoot on grass reduces our level of inflammation, so you don't need to take an anti-inflammatory? Possibly not.
Yeah.
However, there are some small scale studies that show that is the effect that happens, and you can try it for yourself and see how much better you feel.
It's such a tricky thing, isn't it? Because if you look at what's happened in the menopause world, the menopause industry now,
It's become an industry.
It's become a massive industry, and it's, I was thinking when I was reading what you had to say about supplements. I take so many supplements, I rattle. So it's those things that they can sell you, whether or not you need them, who knows? I
think there are probably some that we do need, to be honest, having looked at the data.
But it is that thing, isn't it? Can it be sold to us? And somebody will find a way to sell it to us, and then we can start talking about it.
Well, they've already started talking about red light. So, I've got various red light gadgets that I've been testing. I've got a red light mask, red light panel, infrared sauna.
They've turned it into something you have to buy.
So you buy it. But of course, let's not forget that the atmosphere is rich in red light at sunrise and also at sunset. So if you can't make it out first thing in the morning, try and see the sunset. You don't literally have to watch the sun going down over the horizon, but getting out at that time of day, even when the sky is not red, and I hate to kind of unromanticize sunsets, but that lovely red, pretty glow, so beloved of shepherds at night, is actually more to do with haze and pollution. It's not actually red light. You get red light even on a grey, cloudy day, you're going to get red light. So yes, of course, red light face masks are much more powerful and much stronger and have much closer contact with your skin to help with collagen creation and elastin regeneration. But we get that naturally anyway from being outside.
So, I know that everyone is different, but thinking of, say, the supplements that are so heavily marketed at middle-aged women right now, and I'm such a victim anyway. What would you advise? And I know you're not a doctor, but you are very heavily researched.
Yeah, I have done decades of research on supplements, and I also try them myself. So in the book, I actually split them into 3 sections, because this is a question I get asked a lot. And there is a lot of confusion.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on supplements.
So there are 3 that I think we should all take, and they're not particularly expensive, and they're kind of baseline. So you probably won't be surprised to hear that the first one is vitamin D, so vitamin D3, which you get naturally from the sun, but we're all shy of the sun, so we're not getting enough of it. And also we live in the Northern Hemisphere. So, if I was talking to you, if I was talking to you in the equator, then it would be a different thing. And you can download various apps. I've got a whole section on apps, actually, that you can download. A lot of these are free, where you can monitor your vitamin D. You can put in the time of day, where you are, how much cloud is in the sky, and you can see how much vitamin D your skin is generating. So vitamin D, which is actually more like a hormone rather than a vitamin, it's a bit of a misnomer. But you get, and the best kind comes with...
I'm not going to go off down there.
Right. Yeah.
I slightly want to, though.
It works. It has so many different attributes, and the pathways it follows are more along the hormonal pathways.
How interesting.
And it's doing all sorts of things, helping, keep our bones strong. Some of the most recent, most compelling data actually is on type 2 diabetes prevention. So really interesting. So you've got vitamin D, look for D3. It should be combined with K2. Most of the good supplements are combined, because what the vitamin K2 is doing is it's directing the vitamin into the right place. The second one is magnesium. Magnesium is a really important mineral involved in hundreds of different biochemical processes in the body, but it's unfortunately depleted in our modern day diet by food processing and modern agriculture, which take it out of the soil. And then the third one is, depending on how much oily fish you eat, but unless you're eating...
0.
Yeah, so exactly. So it'd be really worth taking a good quality omega-3 supplement that has lots of EPA and DHA. And that's anti-inflammatory. And it's also really good for the brain. It's been implicated in brain health, particularly helping with dementia and Alzheimer's. Some really interesting research going on with that at the moment. And then if you're on a restricted diet, so for example, if you're vegan or vegetarian, you're going to need a whole raft of other things that you're not getting from a varied food diet, like B12, for example, probably B6. You're going to need taurine, choline, lots of other heme iron, for example. So different things. So it depends on your diet. But for those, if you're eating pretty much a balanced diet with everything that's not restricted, then your vitamin D, your magnesium and your fish oils would be bottom line.
So what does your regime look like?
Well, it's always a tricky one to ask in terms of supplements, because I do try a lot, and I'll pick them up.
It's when you're a beauty journalist, it's like, what moisturizer do you use? Well, any one of those 15.
So I have. So that to those, I then add in the things that I consider the nice to haves. If your time and your budget allows. So particularly creatine. I've become a big fan of creatine for midlife women. So creatine is producing ATP energy, like the mitochondria. It's also really important for muscle strength, and it's cheap, it's flavorless. You can add it to tea or coffee or juice, whatever, and it's something that I think all of us should probably be considering taking. So that's another good one. I am actually a fan of collagen, particularly for midlife women and older. So I take collagen, and I like protein powders. I add collagen to my coffee to top up my protein levels. We're losing around 1% of our collagen capacity every year after the age of about 30.
So you don't subscribe to that? If you ate a proper diet, you wouldn't need supplements?
No, I don't. And I explain why. One, do you know anybody who eats a proper diet every day? I mean, that's kind of the fundamental. Number two, even if you are eating, quote unquote, a proper diet, our food has become so devitalized and so demineralized. When they look at dietary values, they use reference charts written in a wonderful archive book, McCants and Widdowson's. And that was started, I think, in the 1950s. Well, our food values have changed dramatically, and there have been lots of studies re-evaluating the nutritional content of, things like carrots and saying, well, how has that changed? And unfortunately, it's been depleted over the years. So it may not be what you think it.
Frozen for
and stored
months,
and possibly irradiated, and particularly fruit, particularly things that travel, things that are non-local, that travel a long time and have to have a long shelf life. And then the third reason is that as we age, our ability to create our own vitamins, because we do make a lot of them ourselves, and absorb them diminishes. So on one hand, you've got increasing need because the body needs a bit more to keep it going because it's running out. Our ability to absorb it and create these things goes down. And what we're getting in our food is also going down. So that has really led me to the conclusion that there are certain things, unfortunately. It doesn't mean don't think food first. Always think food first. Don't assume that you can just get away with, which is why things like the GLP-1 agonists, the weight loss jabs, can be so damaging because you lose your appetite. And we tend to eat less when we're older anyway and go for sweet things rather than nutritious things. So there is this kind of potential raft of older people being malnourished because they're not getting nutrition from food. But that doesn't mean to say that you should get it from vitamins. They are, after all, supplements, supplementary to, not instead of. And then there's the third category in the book, which I actually found the most fascinating. And it is a bit geeky.
You're a total nerd, aren't you?
Well, honestly, Sam, literally, I do actually say at the beginning of this chapter, after I wrote it, I then went back and thought, I'm going to put a little caveat on this one. And it says, listen, feel free to skip this bit. You might want to come back to it later, because this is where I go really into the weeds of the longevity supplements. So this is things like urothalin A and methylene blue and MitoQ.
Yeah, things that you
and
literally have never
and
heard
Bicetin,
of.
And fascinating things, rapamycin. And, these are things that will become mainstream because they are already proving themselves in the lab. The one actually which has, I think, become more mainstream, which is highly relevant to our mitochondria, is coenzyme Q10.
Yes.
CoQ10.
Yeah.
Do you take that?
No.
You should take that. I'm sorry to load one onto your stack, but
no,
I really think it's a good
give
one.
Me a list. So.
It is a good one. And the reason it's good is that our mitochondria love it. And it genuinely gives you more energy. Anybody listening who's taking a statin, and I did hear your podcast with Prue Leith, who's given up on her statins, which personally I think is probably the right thing for her because she talked about the muscle aches and the muscle pain, which is a side effect. But what doctors often forget to mention to their patients is that you do need to take CoQ10 if you're on a statin, because it reduces the amount of CoQ10 available in the body. And that's one of the reasons, I believe, why people sometimes on statins feel they have far less energy and more muscle aches, is because they're depleted in coenzyme Q10.
Because I was really interested in something you say in the book about the fact that, is it by 65, most women will be taking, the average woman is taking 5
Oh, that's the average.
prescription.
Yeah, and then it goes up and up and up. So they call it polypharmacy.
That's
Somebody's taking mine because I'm not
horrifying,
taking
isn't it?
any.
No, well, I'm taking 2.
Yeah, it's, medicine, great, but let's think lifestyle and what we can do before reaching for the prescription and the pill pot. And actually, when you look at gender inequality in healthcare, women tend to live longer, and that's due to the advancements of pharmaceuticals, surgery, antibiotics, all of those really great parts of medicine. But unfortunately, we're living longer in poorer health. So although we're living on average maybe 82 and a half, 83 years, from around the age of 70, we're much more likely to be in pain, incapacitated, maybe losing cognitive function. And, that is the norm. And that's why there is this whole polypharmacy of endless amounts added onto our prescriptions. I was talking to a pharmacist friend who said that, he can absolutely see it from the age of sort of late 50s. Somebody will come in and they'll have maybe 1 or 2 things on their prescription. And then as the years go by, the prescriptions get longer and longer and longer, very often being prescribed something to counteract the side effects of something that was prescribed earlier on. So if we can find ways to avoid that, by actually preparing ourselves so they don't become dysregulated. Our mitochondria are there to be actively fighting off immune issues and repairing cellular damage, mutations in DNA, for example, before we develop things like cancerous cells that can be overloaded, or osteoporosis with our bones not absorbing our minerals properly and staying strong, then so much the better. And of course, brain function is really important as we age.
Do you think, this is not something, you do allude to it in How to Age, but do you think that women's aging, obviously there's a narrative around how you're supposed to age as a woman, but do you think it's affected by the amount of our lives that we've spent on a diet?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. And we certainly know that eating disorders dramatically affect longevity. And there's a very interesting study actually looking at those who've had anorexia in early life and massive bone fragility. Not only things like infertility, but when you look at osteoporosis. And one of the things that these doctors want to do is put young women on HRT patches because they won't eat. And there's obviously a big issue with trying to get people to eat. But while that is going on, while treatment for that is going on, if you can stick on an estrogen patch, at least they will absorb that transdermally through their skin, which then helps to bank estrogen and strength into their bones. So yes, I think, the fact that we have been told to diet and stay thin. It's funny, isn't it, when you look at ads, particularly in America, of the antidepressants from the 1950s, Mother's Little Helpers, enabling her to do more housework and keep her nice trim little waist with her apron, tied around it.
Have you looked at the ads for HRT from back then?
And why they were given? We obviously need our hormones back, but yes, they were given HRT so that they would, be less troublesome to their husbands and want more sex.
Yeah. Unbelievable. How long have you been taking HRT now?
I've been taking it, must be about 10 years, I think early 50s. I wish I'd started sooner. I wish that, for me.
I've
because
been taking it long from that.
I think, the studies are very clear that the earlier you start, the better protected you are. And I genuinely think that we will be saying in the future, not, what are the health risks of HRT, which are minimal, especially with modern transdermal, non-existent for estrogen, but what are the health risks of not taking it? Because we know, particularly you've got researchers like Dr. Lisa Mosconi in America looking at Alzheimer's and brain health, cardiovascular disease. The heart is a real estrogen hungry organ. Osteoporosis, obviously, that's one of the first lines of medication, even on the NHS, is replacing hormones, let alone all the other things that it does that's heart protective. And it's anti-inflammatory. Estrogen is anti-inflammatory. And inflammaging is this term for inflammation throughout the body, which is literally aging us. So, and then you've got all the benefits of estrogen in the skin. So it's, probably better than any face cream ever invented, actually, is to replace your estrogen.
And the biological age test, because there's the interviews you've been doing for the book. Obviously, the headline is,
Oh, God,
I know. Sorry, yeah.
Yes, she's only such and such an age with a younger lover. They've got to throw that in as well. Good old Daily Mail. Thanks for that.
I actually wrote that down because
seriously,
your partner being 17 years younger, that would not have been worthy of note if you were a man.
Oh my gosh, nobody would have batted an eyelid that I had a younger girlfriend, and this is the headline.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even say boyfriend, it had to be lover, obviously, because you've got to get that kind of salacious, sexy bit in there.
Yeah, it had to make you sound a bit cougary.
Yeah. So biological age. So I think it's an interesting metric. So chronological age is, what your birth certificate says. Biological age is actually how old your cells consider them to be. And this is really interesting because we can affect that. We can affect change. So just as with genetics, our DNA is the deck of cards that we were dealt with at birth. Epigenetics is how well we play our hand and what changes we can make to our DNA. The same is true with aging. We can make our cells behave in a younger way. So if we're going to sit around immobile on the sofa under artificial LED lighting, eating crisps all day, our cellular age is likely to be much higher than our chronological age. So you can have a very young, 30-year-old whose biological age is actually quite old. They might be in their 50s or 60s. On the other hand, you can have somebody who is, chronologically my age, in their early 60s. And if I do a biological age test, my cells might tell you that I'm really, in my 30s. And this is, I think, really relevant to modern medicine because you get certain cutoffs with medicine. So I was prescribed something really recently, just something, really trivial. And I went along to the chemist to get this prescription. And I was asked how old I was. And I said, well, I'm 63. And he said, oh, well, you can't have it because the cutoff's 60. I thought saying, yes, but my cells are 39.
Yes.
So on a cellular level, so that really is questioning, why we had these arbitrary lines that cut off certain things and say, well, at a certain date, you must start taking this, you must start having this blood pressure lowering medication or whatever. Yes, but hang on a minute, that is just the average within society.
Everybody's not the same.
We're all very different, and women are not small men. That's also the other thing to remember.
Yeah.
And when you look at the healthcare research, we are underfunded, under-researched, often overlooked. Do we know that paracetamol works on pain pathways in women, which are different from men? We don't really know because they didn't do the trials. So, ethnic minorities are not tested. It's, statins, for example, the early studies on statins were not conducted on women. So do they work on our physiology? Our heart is a different shape and size to a man's heart. Our fat distribution is different. Our chromosomes are all different. Does this stuff work on us? Well, I don't know.
Are we seeing that improve, do you think? I mean, I saw some an investigation today that investment into men's healthcare is still 80% more than women.
I saw that too. Yeah, and I was really staggered by that because there's been so much talk about how a woman can wait up to 10 years for a diagnosis for endometriosis because of the lack of funding. And yet, if you had a male-specific condition, that absolutely wouldn't have happened. One of the professors I interviewed for the book, he is a urologist, and he had basically worked on this clinical trial for a really helpful pharmaceutical to help with women's bladder pain, which is really common. UTI is unfortunately very common in later life. And he went everywhere, all the big medical journals trying to get it published. Nobody was interested. They then ran a similar trial a couple of years later, showing a really small, modest improvement in prostate health. And guess what?
Yeah.
The study was published the next month.
Surprised me.
These inequalities are still there. And I think so often in women's healthcare, it's all been lumped together as, it's just women's issues. It's just expected. It's just, the pain that we might have gynecologically is normalised. And we do know that women put up with more pain, and we're actually unfortunately prescribed more painkillers, we're prescribed more antidepressants for low mood, when there's so much else that we could be doing that's simple and easy and free if our physiology was better understood.
Do you feel like that also applies to your work? You make a passing reference to it. And I was just thinking, the way that women's journalism is women's journalism, not journalism.
Oh, yeah, it's not journalism.
And, you're a beauty editor. So it used to be beauty and health, and that kind of, which is now wellness.
Yeah.
It's not serious. It's not proper.
Completely. I haven't written about beauty for 30 years. All my work, my recent books and research is all about health and well-being. Well-being in the broadest sense, which is what health is all about, isn't it? It's about being well, well-being.
Yes, not an addendum to moisturiser.
No. This is about actually vitality and disease prevention and, spotting dysregulation before it turns into disease. But I think, women's health, women's wellness, particularly when written by women, is seen as sort of safe,
lifestyle.
It's sort of woolly. Lifestyle. Should we just drink a bit more water then? And actually, I want to be a bit more disruptive. And I think we need to change public health policy. It's one of the reasons I actually sit on the board of the Centre for Social Justice, because it's a cross-party think tank and it campaigns at government level. I'm actually chairing a new commission into ageing, because we are, as a population in the UK, we are all ageing, but we're not ageing well. So part of the remit of the commission is to come up with a report to make recommendations at government level that will affect change. And I tell you, part of that will be changing lighting, public lighting policy, and changing light bulbs in hospitals and care homes and schools, because indoor lighting, LED light, disrupts our mitochondria. And if we can do something as simple as revert to a few incandescent light bulbs, we could make significant changes to the way we age and the health of the nation.
People are full of surprises, especially when you travel together. Thankfully, Vrbo is not. When you book a Vrbo, you get Vrbo Care and 24/7 live support, so your house doesn't surprise you like your friends might. If something's not as described or doesn't work, Vrbo's there. Real people, real support, anytime. Book today on the Vrbo app. If you know, you Vrbo. Terms apply. See vrbo.com/trust for details.
You have a huge section on lighting and frequency, but there is one absolutely major high street retailer that my husband can barely go in, because within about 10 minutes being in there, he's got a migraine.
Yeah,
that's the frequency of the lights.
Yeah, it's very likely flicker. So flicker is a big issue, and you can actually test flicker if you get out your phone. I'm assuming everybody has a smartphone, but if you get out your phone and you put it on a slow-mo video setting and you record wherever you are in the room, and do it now while you're listening. If you're listening at home or office, on the bus, wherever, just have a little quick flick and record. And if you can see flicker, then what the atmosphere around you is flickering and your brain registers it. You can't see it, it's imperceptible, but that is stressing your nervous system. And that is what can trigger migraine for a lot of people. And our brain has to cope with that, with all the other stresses that it's under anyway. It actually has to cope with flicker. So you really want to try and have flicker-free lighting. And there are, now you can see it listed on certain light bulbs. They say they're flicker-free.
Are they really?
Well, you can check them. Yes, yes, they are. And a lot of them are, to be fair. But one of the key things at night, just as we need that early morning daylight exposure to set up our mitochondria, we need to be really careful in the evening, because when you think about historically what our ancestors were doing, they were getting up with the light. As soon as it got dark, you had to go to bed, didn't you? Or you sat around a campfire and chatted to each other, because you couldn't do anything else. You couldn't go and work in the fields. You couldn't, use sharp implements or whatever, because you couldn't see. So then a bit later on, they had oil lamps and candles, but, that was a long time. Then we had the electric light bulb. Suddenly, we could come indoors. We could stay up all night. We could work all night under artificial light. And nobody thought, what is this doing to our cells? And our mitochondria do not like artificial light. So in the evening, as much as you can, switch off overhead LEDs.
The big light.
Yeah. The big ones. Yeah. Have a few old-fashioned incandescent light bulbs. You can still buy them. They're still available. Pop them in a couple of lamps. You can have a desk lamp if you're carrying on working. You can have a bedside lamp. You can have a lamp in the sitting room. Put a couple in the kitchen. And just think about what your light source is and the light input. And then if you really do want to stay on your screens and you're scrolling and you're doing late night emails, just have some blue blocking glasses, the orange lens glasses that all the biohackers are wearing, because that is one of the good things. That is a good investment, I think.
Well, you are practicing what you preach, because you've got your orange glasses hung on your...
I do have my orange glasses because I never know when I'm going to be in an atmosphere. I mean, I've just come through an airport and there are no windows in an airport. And, once you get into the depths of, duty free and all of that, and lots of bright white lighting. I really feel people have to work in those environments. And all I would say is, if that is you, then try and get as many light breaks as you can. If you're going out for a cup of tea or whatever, just try and get outdoors, or at least get somewhere where you can open a window and let the real light into your eyes.
Do you know how, in the time you've been doing your longevity research, how your biological age has changed?
Yeah, the first test I did, I think I was 49, and then it went down to 44, then 39. I try not to get too hung up on it, because it's not,
it's become another test.
And it's how you feel. I mean, I feel much fitter and stronger. I feel happier, in my 60s actually, than I've ever felt in any other decade of my life. And that was a big motivation for writing, because I want all women to feel like that. Aging should be an upward trajectory, which is a strange way to think about it. But why can't we feel happier and fitter and stronger? We know now, we know the tools and the simple things that we can do. I'd love to be sitting here with you, Sam, in my 70s, in 10 years' time, saying, my 60s are a bit rubbish, really. I feel so much better now in my 70s.
Hope so, yeah.
Well, like Prue Leith, what is she in her 80s?
Yes. Yeah.
So, and she's, like the Duracell bunny, isn't it? Just carries on going. And her mitochondria are obviously thriving. I don't know what her light habits are, whether she gets out early in the day, but I wouldn't be surprised if she does.
Yeah, it's all those 5 a.m. starts for Bake Off.
It must be. It must be. She's definitely doing something right, and her estrogen, because I know she's a big fan of HRT. But yes, I think, let's not get too hung up on biological age. I went to a biohacking conference not that long ago, and there was an amazing woman there. She was in her 70s. She's very sprightly, and she looked great, lots of energy. And we were chatting over lunch. She said, "Oh yes, my biological age is 21." I was thinking, crikey, what are you doing? And then she reeled off everything that she was doing, which basically boiled down to getting up at 4 every morning and never having even one glass of wine. And I thought, that is just a step too far. I think you can
So you're not one of those annoying morning routine people?
I do have a morning routine, but it's very simple. It's get up, sky before screen, if you can remember that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So just open a window.
I could do with that.
Brush your teeth in front of an open window. Or get out if you can. But my routine does not take very long. I hydrate with water with a pinch of salt or electrolytes first thing before my cup of coffee. So it's just building these little steps in. But I think, if you...
But you still drink coffee?
Definitely. Coffee is a superpower. Coffee, definitely.
Yeah. I was quite happy to see that.
Coffee drinkers live longer. That's proven. Not too many.
My ears.
2 to 3 cups a day, they say, is the optimum. And interestingly, it's not the caffeine, because decaf also has an effect. It's probably more the polyphenols in the coffee and the chlorogenic acid that's actually doing it, that's working as an antioxidant in the body. But yeah, coffee is a good one.
Fascinating. This is a bit of an aside, but I want to ask you, before I ask you the questions that I always ask at the end, because I'm conscious of time. In the book, you, right at the very beginning, you talk about the fact that you spent 15 years traveling the world selling skincare. And I was wondering about that dissonance, how, it was not something you cared about particularly. I mean, I'm not saying you didn't care about your product, but it wasn't what made your heart sing. It wasn't what you got into. And there you are in your mid-40s, and you've spent pretty much the last 15 years doing that. And I just wondered about how that dissonance might have played into the general maelstrom of your mid-40s.
I mean, when Kim and I set up the beauty company, we didn't expect it to be the absolute runaway success that it was.
Yeah, Cleanse and Polish.
I still use Cleanse and Polish. I have no connection with the company at all, but I use it every single day, twice a day. And I'm very proud of it.
I hope you've got a load of free in your...
I'm contractually given Cleanse and Polish, which is great. And it hasn't changed, and I love it. I'm very proud of it.
So they haven't messed with the formula?
No, I think a few of the formulas have changed, but not Cleanse and Polish. Not the original one anyway, to the best of my knowledge. And when we started it, it was like a side hustle because I was writing books, I was doing daytime TV, all of that. And it just became so overwhelmingly popular and successful. And you're on a steam train that you can't get off, So, and obviously you want it to do well, it's exciting, and you then become responsible for all these people that you're employing, and it becomes a big thing. So yes, it was super interesting. I learned a huge amount about the inside workings of the industry, and I learned a lot about, things that I possibly don't need to know about, things like supply chains and logistics and legal contracts and all of that, which, with hindsight was super interesting. But one of the reasons for me selling and moving on is that it had just completely taken me away from my passion for writing about health and well-being. And I felt that is my life's purpose. And actually, the last chapter of the book is about purpose. It's really important to find your purpose and to know that you're making a difference for others and for yourself, and that you're living authentically the way that you feel that you are destined to do, to the best of your ability, using your talents in the best way possible. And for me, I feel that that's writing about ways to make life better, particularly for midlife and older women who tends to be invisible, rather than selling face cream, if I'm really honest with you.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you end on purpose and curiosity, and it's the thing when I think about the hundreds of women who've been on the shift, aged from 39 to 103.
Wow.
And she was amazing. Dr. Gladys, I go on about Dr. Gladys all the time. But curiosity and purpose seem to me to be the single most important thing.
I feel so lucky to be working in this space that I hope I will always work in this space. Doing podcasts, writing, the ability to work anywhere at any time. And obviously there's, deadlines and pressures and all the rest of it. But every day is a school day. Every day is finding something new. And particularly working in the world of longevity, because words like mitochondria, we weren't talking about these a few years ago. Nobody was talking about quantum biology and the fact that we're energetic beings and the effect of light on our brains. I mean, this was just unheard of. And it's so relevant and it's so important. So I've got renewed energy and just such massive passion for getting this subject out there and more widely talked about.
Right, questions I always ask at the end. Have you prepped?
I haven't actually, no, sorry.
Good. No, good.
What are you going to ask me?
No, I always prefer it when people haven't prepped. I just couldn't tell whether you're a prepper or not. What's your emotional age?
My emotional age is probably about 30. So I feel more stable than I did as a teen, but I certainly don't feel, old as in mature, because I still like to have a bit of a laugh, which is being a bit silly. So probably about 30.
Give us a book recommendation.
Do you know, it's a real classic, and I'm reading it very slowly. I tend to only read reference papers and clinical studies.
I'm not surprised.
Dominates.
The amount of them,
that actually dominates me. So I'm reading and have been reading for the last about 18 months or so, Tender as the Night, F. Scott Fitzgerald. And
I'm sorry, but that is slow reading.
It's literally, it is so beautiful. I read a page and I just almost want to cry at the craftsmanship of it is extraordinary. And I go back and I reread and I read chunks to my boyfriend and say, listen to how he describes the scarf around her neck, and you just think, oh my gosh. So that's why it takes me such a long time to read. It travels everywhere. I've got a copy in my bag. I just love it. I dip into it page at a time.
What advice would you give younger women?
Lighten up. Seriously, I wish I'd been told that earlier on, although I probably wouldn't have listened.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't stress. I see my kids worrying and I say, listen, is this going to worry you in a couple of years' time? And they go, well, no, obviously not. The printer's broken or whatever. I said, well, why are you stressing now? Don't let it affect you. Obviously, if things are big and serious, we need to deal with them. But I think there's so much stress and there's so much stuff that overwhelms us. Don't be brought down. One of the things I did during the lockdown, the pandemic, I couldn't cope with all the negative stuff that was around us. Disconnect from all the news feeds, the toxic influences. You don't need it. Stay light, be aware, obviously. But things that you can't control, let them go and just bring light of all sorts into your life. Daylight preferably, but be light as well within yourself.
Who's your old bird role model?
My old bird role model. I don't really think about women who are necessarily older who would be a role model. I mean, I meet amazing women who've done incredible things, scientists and researchers. I think women who push the boundaries, scientists particularly who get, sidelined in their research, who probably, we've never heard of, but continue to work in that space regardless. I have a lot of women who are role models, but I wouldn't pick one out based on her age necessarily.
What's your superpower?
Staying calm. A friend once described me as liquid Valium, which I reread actually in an article. It was reprinted, and I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or not. But I think I am calm in a crisis. I think because of that, maybe that sense of perspective, although I probably internalized quite a lot. Like the old swan with the legs paddling under the water.
I'm sorry, Sausage is crawling all over your coat because he's found something soft to lie on.
Well, that's great because cats are very good arbiters of good energy. Do you know that the cats purr at a healing frequency?
Yeah.
And that when you're not well, they'll come and sit on you and purr, hopefully to help revive your cells.
Hopefully. And last one, how many fucks do you give?
Oh, I don't give many fucks at all. Probably never have, actually.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.
This Father's Day, when you ship UPS Air at the UPS store, your items arrive on time or your money back, guaranteed at no extra cost. It's like the father of all shipping services. It shows up to the airport way too early, just to play it safe. It's overprotective about all the things that truly matter, and it's always prompt, especially to be with family. Make it your first choice to celebrate your dad. Ship UPS Air with our money-back guarantee, exclusively at the UPS Store U.S. retail locations. Visit the upsstore.com/airshipping for full details. Terms and conditions apply.